Welcome. Glad you're joining us for this investigation.
Make sure to hit subscribe because a massive break in the Lynette Hooker case is about to shatter everything you thought you knew about this mystery.
You can completely forget Brian Hooker's original story
About his wife falling from a drifting, disabled dinghy.
A stunning new update from federal investigators just completely blew his alibi to pieces. After the Coast Guard intercepted Brian's vessel at sea, they extracted the forensic data right from his green smartwatch. Here is the terrifying reality. The GPS proves his boat was never drifting in that storm. It was actually being steered, making tight circles over two deep Pacific Ocean trenches. Detectives believe he was sending something heavy down to the ocean floor. And agents just took DNA samples from Lynette's family to identify her remains once dive teams locate them. Do not look away for a single second, because if you miss this new evidence, you will miss the exact moment the trap snaps shut on Brian. Let's look directly at the evidence, because where that digital tracking data ends, the true nightmare begins. When the Coast Guard Investigative Service pulled the files from Brian's green smartwatch, they weren't just looking at meaningless coordinates. They had uncovered a digital roadmap tracing a suspected ocean crime scene. Brian repeatedly swore to the Hopetown volunteer fire and rescue teams that his vessel was completely dead in the water because the key fell overboard with Lynette. He claimed he was merely a hostage to the wind, drifting aimlessly across the pitch-black sea of Abaco
for 8 agonizing hours before finally washing ashore at Marsh Harbor.
But federal investigators uncovered tracking data that completely shatters his grieving husband act. The GPS records proved the boat was moving with deliberate purpose under engine power. It did not just drift. It cruised directly to two specific, isolated coordinates where the ocean floor suddenly plunges. When the boat reached those precise spots, it did not just float past. Instead, the digital tracking shows the boat circling tightly in place, looping around repeatedly, as if an anchor had been deliberately dropped to hold it steady against the raging storm. This evidence immediately pivots the entire investigation in a dark, chilling direction. Why would a husband claiming he has zero engine power and is desperately searching for his missing wife stop to circle the deepest parts of the ocean? Investigators quickly realized the dark truth. Brian was not just drifting, he was executing a calculated play. He spent critical hours at those exact coordinates in the dead of night, right over the deepest waters. But this is where the mystery takes a massive turn, leaving detectives with one deeply troubling question. If Brian's boat was running and actively steering through the dark, how did he end up hitting the shores of Marsh Harbor not once, but twice that same morning?
That double landing at Marsh Harbor is the very moment
Brian Hooker's alibi completely collapses into a web of impossible lies. He told the local sheriff and desperate search volunteers that he drifted aimlessly through the rough waters, coming ashore at a single spot where he miraculously saved himself. But federal detectives tracking his digital footprint stumbled onto something genuinely bizarre. The small dinghy actually hit the shore in two different spots, hours apart, on Easter Sunday morning. If you are really just a stranded sailor with no motor power, drifting blindly at the mercy of the rough ocean waves and shifting tides, making landfall twice in separate areas is physically impossible. This proves that Brian was actively steering that boat, navigating to a hidden initial spot before moving it to a second, far more convenient location to stage his dramatic rescue. Local search and rescue teams who know the treacherous Marsh Harbor terrain insist there is no way anyone could have trekked through that dense, muddy swamp from his alleged landing site to the residential doors where he begged for help. So, how did he cross that impassable wetland? Federal investigators have a chilling theory that changes everything. They suspect Brian fabricated a decoy trail using a green flotation device.
He launched the green floating mat to drift across the ocean to track precisely where the tide would carry it, using his Garmin smartwatch to map out the path.
Then, powered by a silent, hidden electric motor on his dinghy, he tracked that exact line.
Stepping ashore at the first location, he marched toward the suburban neighborhood, searching for outdoor trash cans to permanently get rid of Lynette's dry bag, which held her passports and spare keys.
Yet, the most staggering piece of physical evidence isn't actually what Brian tossed into the garbage.
It is what federal agents realized was physically gone from his luxury sailboat when they raided.
The moment federal agents officially secured Brian Hooker's luxury sailboat,
the soulmate, they quickly transformed the entire vessel into an active crime scene. Yellow forensic tape stretched across the vessel's deck, as forensic teams carted off box after box of bagged evidence. But it was what they couldn't find on board that sent shockwaves through the case. True crime followers who have closely followed this mystery from day one know that specific heavy pieces of marine gear are missing from the ship's inventory. Specifically, a heavy spare outboard motor that Brian had recently replaced but kept on board, along with Lynette's own personal scuba diving gear. Lynette was an expert diver who always used a bright, custom pink buoyancy vest and a matching pink weight belt.
Those heavy weights are designed specifically to sink a human body deep underwater.
Detectives realized that both the heavy spare outboard motor
and Lynette's pink diving weights had completely vanished from the sailboat. The chilling theory developing behind closed doors is that these heavy items never fell overboard by accident. Federal agents suspect Brian
used that heavy spare motor and those specialized diving weights
to deliberately anchor Lynette's body to the seafloor at the precise coordinates where his smartwatch showed him circling.
This completely shatters his initial alibi,
that she merely slipped and fell off the back of the small dinghy.
You don't just accidentally fall into the ocean wearing a heavy weight belt while carrying a spare boat motor. This glaring inventory mismatch is exactly why.
Federal authorities have officially stepped in to take absolute control of the investigation.
Local island police are finally giving their full cooperation,
letting United States federal dive teams plunge straight into the dark depths of the Sea of Abaco.
But as those underwater search teams gear up to dive at those exact coordinates, some fresh breaking news shows the net is closing fast on Brian.
The final trap is snapping shut, and the most heartbreaking moment in this investigation just happened behind closed doors. Federal agents just sat down with Lynette's grieving mother, father, and daughter to officially gather their DNA samples.
This is no routine legal process.
Detectives are collecting this genetic data for one grim reason. They are ready to make a positive match the second federal dive teams. Pull Lynette's body from the exact coordinates tracked by that green smartwatch. Brian Hooker believed he could actually outrun the law. He showed off his flashy white watch to everyone, totally clueless that his green smartwatch was acting like a digital black box, tracking his every step.
The Coast Guard investigators and mobile networks have totally shattered his timeline.
Now, with the family's DNA matched, the final forensic puzzle is complete. Tick-tock, Brian. The trap is set, the evidence is solid, and handcuffs are coming next.